What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, the podcast about all nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will, and today we're here to talk some D&D, some Critical Role, some Downfall, Part 2. But before we dive into that, a couple quick announcements, like always. But pretty much this. Well, actually, we do have a bigger announcement. I'll let you. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
I'll let you tackle that, but real quick, let me get the mundane stuff out of the way. Downfall watch party in the Discord tomorrow night. It'll be the finale. It should be a lot of fun. So come join us for that. There's a link to the Discord down below. Also, Discord watch party this Sunday, where we will be watching Calamity episode 3. So join us for that as well. And finally, Worlds Beyond Number, episode 31. Doesn't really matter, but the most recent episode of Worlds Beyond we will be covering probably sometime in the next few days, I imagine. Maybe this weekend. I don't know. We haven't really talked about it, but that is coming. And yeah, I think that's all for the mundane announcements. So I'll toss it to you now for the exciting one.
The big announcement is that it is Blair's birthday. No, I'm just kidding. one of our Discord people mentioned it was their birthday yesterday, so happy birthday. But no, our announcement is we are doing another one shot. It is called Of Husk and Seed. This is a one shot happening on Friday, August 30th. If you'd like to play in the one shot, let's say maybe you checked out our last giveaway and you really liked it and you're like, hey, I want to play a little D&D, you're going to want to join our Discord. We actually don't do the giveaway on YouTube. It happens in our Discord because it's all automated. But if you love D&D, if you've played D&D, or maybe even if you haven't played D&D before, but you'd like to be in a one-shot with yourself and 5 other people, you can sign up in our Discord. There's a channel called Of Husk and Seed. And that giveaway is going to run for, as of now, 12 more days. I should have had it expire on a Friday for us to do it, which I guess I can always change it. So
yeah, let's see if that makes sense. That would be fun.
Yeah, 7, 8. We could say 9 days from now. I could change it and make it be the Friday of the 2nd. Yeah. So you can sign up there. Real quick, I'll also point out that in the Discord, whether you do the one shot or not, we also have other people who are hosting D&D games that you can check out. And the Discord is just a great place to talk Critical Role, Worlds Beyond, all these great things that we love. So again, check out the Discord.
Yeah, and I will say that Blake wrote up a really cool kind of preface, or I don't know what the word I'm looking for is here, but
a little synopsis.
Yeah, like a little teaser for like what this one shot's going to be about and like the world that it's taking place in. And I thought it was awesome. So definitely check that out as well. And you can get an idea of what this is going to be about.
I'll do a little read real quick, just to kind of wet the palate. Which we always joke about saying expressions wrong. I feel like that's the one you don't want to get wrong. Otherwise, it sounds weird, Yeah. I'm going to wet the elbow. It's like, I'm good, man.
Yeah.
So this is the preface for Of Husk and Seed. Thalantir is dead. After standing for over 10,000 years, the world tree is gone. With its demise, the ancient wards protecting Elysia have been dispelled, unleashing hordes of demons from the in-between. In the decades since the tree's passing, society has largely fallen, with civilization reduced to a small band of foragers and scavengers, but one last vestige of belief remains. The Order of the Seventh Star has tasked you with the last chance this world has. Elna, a young aspirant of the Order, has been sent to deliver something sacred, the last remaining seed of Thalantir, to be planted in its husk. You are one of the 6 of her retinue, protectors and mercenaries tasked as her keepers. Join us for the special Pixelist D&D one-shot as Guardians of Elna and return to Elysia, what people have longed for, hope. And by the way, I put the wrong date. I said August 30th is what I said in the start of our Discord, or our recording today. My wife pointed out that's her birthday weekend, and to not do the D&D one shot that day. So, which I said, I know it was. I knew that.
Testing you.
I know. It's actually Friday, August 23rd from 7 p.m. Central to 1 a.m. With a session 0 the week prior on the date's not right with that either. I got to fix these dates. It says the 17th, but that's not right. It's the 16th, Friday, August 16th at 3 p.m. And there is an event in the Discord you can sign up for. So that's the little preface, the feelers for this story, this homebrew story that I'm calling a little twist, a little spin on a little Last of Us feel and a little Shannara feel as inspiration for this. So if you've checked out either of those contents, I think you'll like the one shot.
Yeah, I think it sounds really cool. So I'm excited to learn more about it. But yeah, again, join the Discord, y'all. There's tons of stuff going on, but make sure you, if you're interested in that, to sign up for the giveaway. There's a dedicated channel for it, right?
Yeah.
And you'll just you just press the emoji. That's how you enter. But if you have questions, you can just ask us in the Discord. But with that out of the way, is there anything else to talk about?
I think that's it.
Alrighty, y'all. Well, at this point, I'm sure you guys know the drill. We are going to be launching into our recap of episode 100, Downfall Part 2, before we dive into our full discussion of it. And we cut that recap out, host it separately for y'all's viewing convenience. So if you find yourself just on the recap and you want to hear our full in-depth discussion and thoughts about the episode, that will be linked down below. But alas, without further ado, let's launch into episode 100. Again, Downfall Part 2. So we pick up in Aor with basically the gods having all met up and decided to split into 3 groups to tackle various missions while they're here. We've got Team Destruction, as I call it, which is Asha, the Emissary, Zaharst, and Tashar, which are, I think, first going to focus on maybe destroying the Obtenebrator, which is what blocks the gods from seeing into Aor. Then we've got Team Intel, who is Salaha, Emira, and Umleta, who are going to try and discover just basically anything they can, but also specifically how the Aerovox protocol operates and where exactly that is in the city. And again, that is this city's failsafe that will launch out the blueprints to the god-killing weapon everywhere in the world, should they feel like they're under attack or anything like that. And then finally we have Trist, Aiden, Milo, and Arcadia, and we're looking for a way into the Genesis Ward. But before they split up and go their separate ways, there's a little moment that kind of happens in this temple that they're all in. And if you recall, all of the paintings to the gods have been restored to their full glory. And one of the things that happens here is Salaha, I think, makes an insight check on Umleta, perhaps, and gleans essentially, basically 99% confirmed, I would say, that Umleta is Lolth, due to how the rope they were using kind of looks like a spider's thread. And Salaha asks, how long have you been here? And Umleta says, oh, I just got off the ship. I just got here. But she's clearly lying. And Salaha says, we got to trust each other if we're going to work together. Don't lie to me. And Umleta says, if you're who I think you are, then I don't trust you. You're the reason we're in this mess in the first place, and you need to take responsibility. Meanwhile, the emissary goes to look at one of these restored paintings of the Lawbearer and makes a religion check, and basically the painting, its face shifts and starts to speak with him. So he's having a communion here. And they have a little moment, and the Lawbearer apologizes for not being there herself and says it's basically because I've made various promises and those promises would start to conflict. So I wasn't able to come because I would have broken a promise to another if I had. And so she says you must honor my promises, emissary. And because I want my children to know that I'm reliable. And the emissary says, I will keep your promise for you. And then this light touches the emissary, and something within him stirs. And the Lawbearer says, when the time for justice comes, they will not thank you for half measures. They will not love this, but they will know it is true and their path. And then the conversation ends. Aiden, at this point, quickly sits down before they all depart and prays, and actually prays to all of the gods. And Brennan actually describes that all of the gods in this chamber like feel this happening. They can feel that they're being acknowledged in prayer. And Trist, in particular, kind of feels this power swell up in her and realizes that someone else also prayed for her here within the last week. And then she starts to kind of get glimpses of the person that prayed and what they prayed for. And it's this archmage of Aor that was praying for their sick son. And this archmage has this old book that they like wrap in cloth and like place in the temple. So Trist then goes and retrieves this book and sees that it is this ancient prayer book to the gods with songs and hymns and prayers in it from even before the Age of Arcanum, before the Calamity, back when the betrayers were locked away. So it was like a time when the prime deities had like the most believers in the world. So she then wonders like where this person is, where this sick child is. And so she goes to Umleta and says, hey, could you like use your gifts and find like where this person is? And Umleta says, yeah, but you're going to owe me a favor. And she basically uses her abilities, and this like golden spider thread comes from the book and kind of leads to this nearby hospital where they assume the boy is. And they also realize his name is Hollis. The groups then basically go their separate ways. So first up, we've got Team Destruction. Again, Emissary, Asha, Tashar, and Zaharst. And they board a tram. And on the tram, two things happen. The first is that they notice that there is some bad blood between Zaharst and Tashar. So like the betrayers don't even get along with each other. And then the second thing that happens is there's this little moment between Asha and the Emissary. Where they basically have like a heart to heart, and clearly Asha like loves the lawbearer. And Asha says like, I made this forest for her and gave it rules, like, and it was just this gift. And the emissary says, you know, she's really sad she can't be here, but she would if she could, and she loves you. And the emissary then holds up a seed and says that this is a forest for you. You created nature out of all of this chaos, and it was beautiful. And now this place has forgotten nature. They've forgotten the gift that you gave them. And after that, we cut to Team Intel, Salaha, Amira, and Umleta as they walk through the artist districts in this empty factory. And at the back of this factory, there's this big vault door. And as Salaha approaches it, the door opens eyes, like eyes appear, and it speaks to Salaha and greets him and says, it's an honor to host the chosen one. And then the door then opens. And it leads to this marble staircase, which heads downstairs to this like beautiful, like speakeasy is the best way I can describe it. This bar kind of has brothel vibes too, that is primarily for Aormatons. And one Aormaton approaches like wearing a tuxedo, or at least like his armor looks like a tuxedo. His name is Chorus, and he is the master of ceremonies. And he is pleased to see Salaha and introduces them as the proprietor of this place and the chosen one. The crowd kind of goes crazy, and Salaha shifts their appearance to be all golden. Um, Inside, again, mostly Aormatons, but there are some humans and some demons as well. And this place is called Ars Elysia. And Salaha basically guides them to kind of like a private area. But Umleta thinks Salaha is a clown and basically walks off on her own. So Amira and Salaha then have a moment where Salaha talks about how they're tired, and you know what, maybe there's beauty in endings. So I just want to enjoy this, and because some of it's my fault, and that just hurts. And Amira says like, hey, you know, you may want things to end, but all of us don't. So like, you know, as cool as this place is, we can always recreate this stuff elsewhere. And in classic Brennan Lee Mulligan poignancy, well, actually no, was it? I can't remember if it was Brennan or Abu that said this, but in response to that, Salaha basically says, you know, yes, I could recreate this place again, but would they be here? And he points to like a couple who like just got engaged. Totally butchered the moment, but it was great. Um, Salaha then goes to speak with the bartender in this area to get information. This bartender is named 4X, and he basically says, you seen anybody strange around? And 4X points to like a tall figure sitting at the end of the bar. And Before Salaha goes over there, there's a quick moment where the demon that Amira took from the guard on the tram speaks up and is like, "Hey, get me a drink." And we find out his name is Slitch, and he's heard everything. So he basically knows that they're gods, and he's like, "You know what? I'm bound to Aor, but wouldn't mind betraying him. This is a big opportunity for me." So they have a little moment, but then they ultimately go speak to this figure at the end of the bar. So Salaha approaches, and the stranger's like, "I'm not trying to speak to you. I just want to be alone." And then the stranger gets up and starts to walk away. And at this point, Salaha casts command, telling him to halt. And now Salaha can see that they are a planetar, an angel. And Salaha says, "You've been a bad angel." And this planetar like then recognizes who Salaha is. And we roll initiative. Salaha is the first to act, casts Hold Monster, but the planetar saves against it. Amira is next. She uses her Boots of Haste and casts Shadow Blade and attacks the planetar. But then the planetar goes and it starts to run for the door. But at this point, Salaha uses his like godly powers to bend reality and transforms the door into a bird cage that captures the planetar and then completely vanishes. The door, which again, the one that had eyes and was speaking earlier, says, "That was a mouthful." And Salaha says, "We'll be joining you down there soon." Amira at this point looks around for Umleta, but doesn't see her anywhere. And that's where we cut to break on the first half.
So we cut over to, I forgot your team names, but basically Team Empathy, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I forgot to name that one.
Team Jesus, I guess. I don't know. But this is Trist, Aiden, and Father Milo, who are investigating the hospital. It's in this like poor rundown area. It hasn't really like gotten much love compared to like the vastness and grand nature of Aor. They enter past like a locked door that Father Milo melts and knock on the door at this late hour and are greeted by an older female physician by the name of Dr. Bezel, who's like, "What do you hear? This is really late. Like, why couldn't this wait till morning?" And they're like, "Hey," they basically say, "Hey, we're here for Hallis. We're here to see Hallis." And Dr. Bezel's very much like, "Oh, Hallis isn't here. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. He was moved some time ago." There's a bit of a back and forth where finally Trist, in being very persuasive and very earnest, is like, "Hey, you have to trust us. We were sent here." Dr. Bezel's becomes very candid and is like, "Oh, Cassia sent you. Oh, we knew someone would be arriving shortly. It's right this way." On the inside of the hospital, they realize this is actually sort of like, I don't know if it's fair to call like a more secretive hospital for the elite, but the inside is like fine linens, like really well put together. And it's very much like a privately funded hospital compared to the rundown nature around it.
Yeah.
They are brought to Hallis, who Dr. Bezel lets them know is has a disease called, I think it was like Gray's wasting, like the Dr. Gray or Grayskill who discovered it. But it's called the wasting. It's like your body's like withering away. And there hasn't been any Aorian tech that's been able to cure it. Trist casts Lay on Hands. And also Cassida arrives via teleport to be like, what is happening? Who are you people? And realizes that Trist is Sarenrae, who she's been praying for, and is like, "Oh my gosh, like you've come." So like I said, Trist casts Lay on Hands, does cure disease. Father Milo is disgusted by this, like really put off by this, and actually walks away with Aiden following and Dr. Bezel following too. And we get this awesome moment from Brennan basically describing that the Everlight Trist, that she hasn't like tapped into this power since part of her was shattered in trying to access a similar power to redeem the Lord of the Hells some time ago. All that to say, casts Lay on Hands, heals Hallis, who is immediately like, "I'm hungry. Like, what's going on?" Cassida is weeping, like, "I can't believe this happened. I can't believe you're here." And basically says like, "Hey, I have been secretly funding this hospital for my son. And that's because I'm part of like an elite group of magisters who's part of this project called the Factorum Malleus. That is the weapon that we've all come to know. But I'm also part of a secret society called the Society of Primes, who we have been tweaking the device, tweaking the weapon, so that we can win the war with you. We've been tweaking the weapon to make it target betrayers, and we intend to help you guys win the war. To which they're like, about that. Meanwhile, Father Milo is having this discussion on Exandria and like how Exandria fits amidst their relationship, and is like twisting Dr. Bezel's body, like, and basically says like, they're little playthings, they're nothing. To which Aiden casts protection from good and evil on Dr. Bezel, and the Father Milo basically says, we were family first. Like they're playthings. Like we were your family, and you walked away from us. And then he sort of just skulks off away. We cut over to Team Destruction, Asha, the emissary, Tashar, and Zaharst, who have arrived after this tram into like this big open courtyard. Brennan describes like this massive building of like black that he calls the Onyx Pinnacle, that is like sort of diffusing this like shadowy energy that seems to be creating the guise that's hiding Aor from the gods. Asha goes over to a nearby tree where a couple of birds are feeding, and basically is like, hey, what can you tell me? The birds say like, there's not much to eat here, there's less trees than there ever was before. And Asha feeds the birds an apple core that Asha breeds maggots from. So feeds the maggots to the birds, and then feeds the maggots into the soil of the tree. The tree awakes, and Asha says, how deep are you? And the tree says, deeper than they think, deeper than they realize, and then begins to stretch its roots to create like this gap in the ground that the four of them could crawl down into and access basically the Obtenebrator engine that is hidden deep below the Onyx Pinnacle. They follow down into the tunnel before they find this sewer pipe that seems to be like the last part that's blocking the entry into the Obtenebrator engine room. And then Tashar cuts through it and says, there's nothing more beautiful to destroy what we don't understand. We cut over then to Team Intel. They have entered Salaha's domain, essentially, and they are talking to the Planetar. They're interrogating the Planetar, who is very much angry at them, angry at the gods for abandoning their posts. And basically, the Planetar identifies themselves as Garathrin, who followed their solar commander, a Castriel, who was a lieutenant of the Dawnfather. We get so many freaking incredible one-liners from Brennan. A couple of lines like, this was a war to us, but for you, it was a squabble. Basically just pointing out, like, how could you make us like go to war after these last 100 years, slaying all these demons, and then just call a truce just and like not keep us in the loop, basically. All that to say, Salaha tries to convince Garathrin to sort of like stand down and calm down, and doesn't really do a great job of it. He says like, hey, just basically says like, do your job. Ignorance is bliss. You don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. Like, it's all going to work out. It's all good. And the Planetar, Garathrin's like, I'm good, man. And then like slits his own throat. So it didn't go great. But he does have an amazing line as he dies. He says, if you wanted us to serve the gods, you should not have made us good, before slitting his throat. Amira immediately, this is just so brilliant, Laura Bailey-esque move, casts Speak with the Dead. We then see the matron's true domain, the Planetar surrounded in darkness, this massive mask of the matron, her massive form, golden threads around, and Garathrin is scared. I don't know what happens now. Like, where do I go? What's next for me? And the matron basically says, stay with me. I'll take care of you. Where is a Castriel? And is told that a Castriel was taken down into a deep chamber, hidden beneath Aor. The elevators have passwords that are changing every day. If you violate or you trespass in any way, they send out the protocol. And that, oh, by the way, since you're all level 20, the mages have a dragon in their service. the dragon by the name of Ataro, a shadow dragon, a dragon of death, who is protecting the device, and that also Fae, Fiends, and Devils have all joined sides with Aor, placing their bets that the mortals will win out. And that they had just missed a Castriel only 20 minutes before they arrived at the Ars Elysia bar. So, all that to say, they realize also in this moment that there is what's called the Scribe, this Aomaton who sits beneath the Obtenebrator engine, who's like ready to send out the information on the weapon. Initiative is rolled, and all three parties are basically trying to converge on the Obtenebrator engine. We have Team Destruction, who's already there, who immediately come out, and they see two constructs and a mage. The next hour is just combat, so we'll just hit sort of the high notes of it. The mage is going to try to cast a shield spell, and the emissary just like cleaves right through it and just deeply damages the mage. Amira sends her Raven down through the tunnel after Team Destruction and then cast Arcane Gate to arrive in the engine room. And then Salaha casts Dimension Door to go to the room beneath the engine room where the Scribe is, and then casts a feature that he has called Clockwork Cavalcade, which is basically like a dispel magic that allows him to basically consume, almost like a magnet, consume the Scribe into him. And Brennan mentions he also consumes like all of the information as well. Up above, Zahar's casts Silence and is able to resist 2 counterspells from both constructs. And this silence spell prevents the mage from casting some of its most important spells like Time Stop, Teleport, Banishment. All of those are off the table. And then meanwhile, in the hospital, Aiden and Trist are like, can you get us to the Obtenebrator room? And Cassida's like, all right, let's go full traitor, and teleports them to the room. We get a stunning strike from Asha on the mage, and then she proceeds to tear out the mage's throat. And then Tashar does a massive damage move on the engine, followed by Aiden's guiding bolt. The engine is destroyed, and they all use the Arcane Gate to escape after 1 round of combat with mages, pew, pew, teleporting in as they leave. And that is where episode 100 of Campaign 3 of Critical Role, Part 2 of Downfall. And if you're watching just our recap, don't forget in the Discord, or excuse me, in the comments, we have a link to our full episode discussion, and then join the Discord to chat about the episode as well if you want. So,
yes, well done, man. These
bro, I feel like these recaps, man, every week I'm just like, or last week and this week I'm just like, there's so much.
Yeah, these Downfall eps are packed. So appreciate y'all bearing with us on these. But yeah, man,
we got some peak BLM in this app.
We did.
I'm always amazed by his one-liners and his poignantness, like the way he just delivers some lines. I'm like, brother, did you write this down beforehand? And you were like, now's the time for the quote. This one. He just seems to do it so effortlessly. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, it really is his gift. I butchered it in the recap. I think it was him and not Abu. You know that moment I'm talking about? Where
it passed over me. So when you were mentioning, I was thinking I vaguely remember Brennan doing something, but then I was wondering if I was confusing it with another moment I was thinking of.
So the whole conversation with Amira and Salaha was the point it boiled down to was like, Amira's like, don't worry, like, yeah, this place is cool, but we'll just build it again. Like, we got to destroy this, but we'll just build that again. And the couple had just gotten engaged in the bar. Yeah. And so the point was like, yes, we can build this again, but they won't be there. Like this moment that just happened with these unique people that were here. Like we can't recreate this exactly as it is. And it was, I think it was Brennan, because classic Brennan.
Don't you think it's so fascinating how Laura is playing the matron? I feel like the low-hanging fruit would have been like this. Out of everyone, she would have been the most conflicted, the most like, we should save Aor, we should save the mages, the wizards, these people who were, this is my people, right? And yet she almost seems like the most callous and cold. Yeah. And like we had seen a little bit of that last episode, but this episode when she made the remark of like, yeah, we'll just build a new one. I just thought, how fascinating.
Yeah. I'm
And
kind
I
of
don't
reading
know.
it. Or go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't know how I fully think about it, like what I digest from it. So definitely, what do you? Yeah, what's your takeaway
My
from it?
initial read on it is that like I don't know if I can't think of the right word, but like it's almost as if, you know, she climbed the ladder and now she's pulling the ladder up. Like
Yeah,
I don't want anyone else to be able to do what I did. And so like kind of has this like adversarial or like vindictive view of humanity perhaps, but
it.
I view it more as like she doesn't want anybody else
Yeah,
to
I
have this power like she does.
I had a similar implication from it of um we don't know the motivation of the ascension. We know like a key theme of the Age of Arcanum is hubris and ego,
Yeah.
and it almost feels like as she looks down on the other mages, like I am so much better than all of you, and you are like you're all beneath me. And so like even
Yeah.
the ritual of ascension was like I don't deserve to be here. My place is with the gods. Like
Yeah.
I'm that's kind of like which is different because the way I had perceived it was almost a little bit like Laren, where the way I was thinking was Laren's philosophy, which was from Calamity for our listeners. When Laren reveals the plan to sort of quasi ascend with everyone, now, was part of her ego involved? Maybe, but her dialogue is all about this is for all of us. This is for all of Avalier. Like, we're all going to become, like, who needs the gods if we can all go there? And again, not that there isn't hubris there, but I kind of assumed there was sort of like this, like, for the sake of science from the
Yeah.
matron. And now I'm kind of wondering, like, this feels like this might just have been about you
Yeah.
and her power and authority. Because we're kind of seeing that in retrospect now.
Totally. Yeah, I think totally. Cause, you know, you could even think that, like, oh, the matron ascends and now she wants to help humanity, like the rest of them take over the gods. But no, she's like, nope,
She's like, "Yep,
just for
you're all
me.
beneath me." Yeah,
Yeah.
I am burdened by whatever's trivial in this world. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that we both kind of had the same takeaway from that. Um, so yeah,
I'm with you
go ahead.
100%. But what's interesting is that moment in the first episode where there was kind of that empathetic humanity where she asks Pervon to watch over Trist's
Hmm.
kids. So I thought that is an interesting kind of like foil to that what we're talking about right now.
But I almost if that was like even just more about Trist though than it was just like she didn't want like anyone else taken care of because these
Right.
people are presumably all going to die. Is the implication was like the town was going to get destroyed or something
Yeah.
like that, I guess. Um, so it almost felt like her acclimating into like the family of the gods. Like that's my sister. I should look after her family rather than, oh, I'm so sad these people are going to be decimated.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
agree. I definitely don't think it was coming from like a general sense of empathy for humanity, but I'm just curious like why she's protective
Yeah.
over them. And maybe it is just the like the godly family
Yeah.
sisterhood situation. Um
The dynamics on that, just the dynamics between the characters are all very interesting. Um, we got the data point of the wild mother and the law bearer uh, as a couple. Maybe that's a little too
no, that
developed
is
term.
canon.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was gonna say, what's the art of the two women who
Yeah, that's
are
them.
interlocking? Okay. I
Yeah.
was wondering after the fact was if that was them. Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Well, so me just, you know, making a comment on something that everyone already knew. So, but that we got confirmation. You were right, Father Milo being Asmodeus.
Oh, right.
But some interesting chatter between him and Aiden. Remarks from Tishar towards who was it? Maybe it was Asha, I can't remember, on like having wounded them like in
Yeah.
an early battle.
Yeah, at Vasselheim, I think.
Yeah. So a lot of really some nice little you can just tell Brennan just appreciates the lore.
Yeah.
Which Brennan, by the way, for those who maybe don't know, Brennan's been watching Critical Role since campaign one. Not that anyone thought this, but he didn't just like, oh, I'm gonna do Critical Role. I guess I should read the wiki. Like he's
Yeah.
been he's been a deep fan for a long time, but it's kind of nice to see like these different little lore tidbits.
Yeah, bro, I would love to be a fly on the wall in him and Matt's like Zoom call as they're like prepping out like the lore
Yeah.
and how they should, do this stuff.
I almost wanted to call it the writing room, but people will just they'll run with it. I knew it. I knew it.
Found it.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
we do, I think, have pretty hard confirmation on who all four of those are now.
Yes.
So, like we said, Milo is Asmodeus.
Yep.
Umleta is Lolth, the Spider
Yep.
Queen. Tishar is Grumsh, the Ruiner.
Yep.
And Zaharst is Torog, the Crawling King.
Right.
Which is certainly interesting. Where are the rest of them? Why didn't they come? And
Right.
that Milo is so fascinating, man, which is just building off of what happened in Calamity with Asmodeus. And again, finding out kind of he sacrificed, I guess is too strong of a word, but like was going to sacrifice himself for his family in that prologue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like okay, I'm about to branch off into six directions again, but okay. One thing before I go there, there's one thing I wanted to talk about first, which was with Salaha specifically, all this talk about it being his fault. Like Umleta saying you have responsibility, and then Salaha in the bar with Amira saying like this is partially my fault. What did you take from that?
I don't know. I was so curious like what was being referenced there, like if they were talking about the nature of the war between them, like was this like a general comment like, hey, prime deities, this is your fault, like why we're here, or if it was some like more recent, because isn't Salaha is like a key Aormaton of Aor, and it almost felt like there was also like this blame of like, hey, part of where they are today, like you had a hand in that, or you could have at least done something sooner. I'm not sure like which. I think definitely that like the macro is present no matter what. But yeah, I'm not sure. What did you take from it?
My assumption is that it's like based on his domain, kind of, because the arc heart is of like magic. Like
I was gonna say like artificers too is not the right word at all, but like that inner I'm using a way big word, interpolation of like magic and technology and science and
yeah, it's all about like the arcane and like artistic creation. So I don't know if the implication there is because of the gifts you gave them, Salaha, like here we are. This is what they built.
Yeah, that's kind of, I think that's a pretty fair way to put it for sure.
So that's my best guess, but I'm curious like you if there's anything like more direct that's being referenced there. And I think the general thing would make sense and probably is the case, but I am just wondering if like Salaha gave him a blueprints, which that obviously isn't what happened, but if it was something like that.
I mean, but here's the deal. Here's what's interesting. We know Aor was developing the god-killing weapon before the events of the Calamity. Could this have been like an Inception thing, like where Salaha, like maybe this is way too much of a reach, but like, quietly created the Society of Primes for like the weapon to be developed, but like it has to be their weapon, otherwise they'll resist the gods. And then it being like designed for the betrayers as like a failsafe, and then the Calamity happened and all these things happened. Like that would be one possibility for like, here's why we're in this position. But I think it's probably a bit of a long-winded stretch for that to be the case. But who knows?
Yeah. I am interested on the whole timeline of how those things did develop. Like the Society of Primes and when and why the weapon was first thought of and created.
And we know in Calamity episode 1, and then it's mentioned again in episode 2, that Aor is developing a weapon. It's presumably this weapon, and that was 100 years prior to where we are now. 150 years, I can't remember.
Yeah.
So it's been in process for a long time, but
Yeah, that's true. And it could have even been, well, because we know the Society of Primes is like a secret organization within
right.
Aor. So even though the betrayers were locked away prior to the calamity, maybe Aor was building the Factorio Malleus just for the Primes. Like, hey, we dealt with the betrayers. Now let's clear out the ones that are still here. It's like maybe that's why the weapon was developed before the calamity, and then
Yeah.
the Society of Primes is like, well, hey, let's tweak this and just kill the betrayers now that they're out.
Right.
Um,
Right.
Very interesting. And this is kind of a decent segue to talk about the law bearer and this confliction, the fact that she's not there because of promises that were made. Like, what are these promises? Why, like, who did she make a promise to? Why could she not come in this moment? And her line to the emissary was interesting to me too, about like, it can't be a half measure. Like, they're gonna be mad, but like they'll know it's what needs to be done. That could really be talking about, like, she could be talking about humanity there, or she could be talking about the gods. And I'm really torn on like, and I think that's intentional. Like, we're not supposed to know like
Mm.
what the law bearers like true aims for the end of this are.
Conflicting is the right way to put it, because like for me, I can't be there because I've made promises makes it seem like these are promises to the magisters of Aor in some way. I mean, I can't think of who else who's not present. Maybe another deity. I'm not sure. But
Honestly,
separate,
it could be, or wait, no, you said it. Yeah, I would think it's either promises to humanity or a deity, but the the promise she's not fulfilling is the promise to be there to help her brothers and
right,
sisters.
right. But
Um,
but then the other element of it feels pretty on the nose that the whole like full measure thing is, I mean, let's be real. This whole emissary energy is kind of around like big nuclear bomb is kind of
yeah,
the takeaway from it.
yeah,
So, like, not that these two things like conflict with one another, but it's like, hey, I'd be there if I could, but I probably shouldn't because I've made these promises. Oh, but here's like a huge bomb and you got to like totally explode. I don't know. It's like I'm very curious what what are we talking about here? And it's
yeah,
what's tough for me too, man, is experiencing all this stuff after the fact, like getting serious about CR in campaign 3. I don't know what is like Brennan creating and what is like lore that,
yeah.
like the comment to Sarenrae about Asmodeus, like that part of her being shattered. I'm like, wow, this is a really cool scene.
Hmm.
Did we know this before? Is this like a detail? What's this referencing?
I need
So
to. I can't give you a hard answer. That is something I wanted to go dive into the lore about, but we do know that like Saren Ray was had a rough time, um, multiple times. So I don't know specifically what that's in reference to.
yeah, okay. But point being, I don't know what's a callback and what's
Yeah,
new information, right? Like I've
yeah,
done that Andy Samberg gif in GIF, whatever, guys. All right. In the Discord of like him just like in the theater smiling and like looking
yeah,
around because people like go wild over like one lines and I'm like,
yeah.
So getting
That's
back
totally
to this,
fair.
getting back to this lawbearer conversation, I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm the one who doesn't know or,
No,
you know,
I think 95% of people feel that way. I feel that way. I think only like the hardcore like people that did their homework like right before watching this episode would be able to pick up on all that type of stuff. So yeah, your guess is as good as mine on some of this, but yeah, I'm just so curious cuz the lawbearer, when the time for justice comes, they will not thank you for half measures. Justice for who? Like, don't you think that could go either way? Like, it could be justice for humanity by wiping out the gods in what they're trying to do right now, or it could be justice for the gods by wiping out humanity because of what they're trying to do.
right.
You know, who are these
I,
promises to? But
and that's, I think you said it really well. That's exactly what I'm processing too. It's almost like, what are your intentions with the emissary being here?
yeah, because
Um,
the lawbearer is like one of the gooder, better prime deities. Like they're, I mean, based on the lore that we know, which could be lore is written by the victors, as they say, but I like is supposed to uphold justice and be this like paragon of morality and what's right. So I could see it being that like at least conceivably that the emissary is there to like disrupt what the gods are doing, as opposed to the other way around. But I don't know.
I can see Brennan doing something like that, like setting something like, Brennan's all about the little twists and turns,
Yeah.
So I could see that. I mean, we're going to find out soon. It almost feels like there's so much happening that I'm really like, dude, how do we wrap this up next episode?
It's got to be a long one.
And we know in the cooldown, which by the way we live streamed.
I forgot to watch it. Dang
it! It gets live streamed in the Discord immediately following the episode. By the way, y'all, if y'all ever want to watch that, someone's very kind. I think it's Rexor. Someone's very kind. Which, by the way, if it's not Rexor, sorry for the person who does it that I misnamed. But we do that in the Discord, by the way, if you want to check that out. Anywho, Brennan said it's going to be a chonky one. It's going to be a busy one, but it just feels like there's so many details and just so much to like. I don't necessarily say like loose threads, but just like there's just a lot on the table right now.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I agree that like loose threads isn't the right word, because it's just like world building, right? That Brennan has introduced us to. And so we're not necessarily going to like explore each of those things, I don't think. But like,
give me 1 second. Someone keeps knocking on the door and I'm pretty sure it's my daughter, my 4-year-old. So
you're good.
Just 2 seconds. Okay.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that, Brennan and Matt, I'm sure, have just like fleshed out all of these things. So Brennan is like the master he is, alluding to certain things as we explore. But I mean, we couldn't feasibly explore all of that, I don't think. So I'm interested to see what actually happens in this final episode.
I'm back.
You're good.
It was actually my wife. She was bringing me lunch.
Oh,
you can't skip lunch.
I always skip lunch.
So Tim Robinson would not appreciate that. Sorry about that, though.
No, you're good. But yeah, I'm totally with you. I'm wondering what exactly we're gonna tackle in this final episode. Like, we gonna have a dragon battle with Ataro? Is that his name?
Yeah, Ataro.
Like,
Brennan, like this is so like fun. DMing D&D is like you say just enough to create like the like I think about Matt when he revealed I can't think of the name, the Fey Dragon mount of Gloamgut, and Ashley Johnson like, I want that.
I want that.
I want it. And I think also there was mention of his sword too, by the way. I can't think of the guy's name.
Yeah.
And someone else being like, I want the sword. I want it. But Ataro, a shadow dragon, a dragon of death. And everyone was like, like that's just such a fun thing as a DM to like just lay out those things and see reactions. And another great example of that, by the way, was when Brennan, like as Cassida, like eagerly and excitedly, like, we've tweaked the weapon to kill the betrayer gods, and like everyone was like, oh man, I wish she hadn't said that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Which, by the way, sorry, I was just gonna park there for 2 seconds, but I also moved away from where we were, so I don't know if you had more to say back there. Or
one really quick thing, and then I wanted to park a little bit on Cassida.
Yeah. Okay.
So are you moving from that?
I actually forgot what I was saying like 8 seconds ago. So let's go to what you said, and then we'll go to Cassida, and then I'll remember where I was going.
So the first quick thing I wanted to mention is Ataro being a dragon of death. Like, I wonder if Emira could like use that somehow, like manipulate that somehow. But Cassida, the Society of the Primes, very curious about this because, like, I wonder if any of them like would have actually been game for that plan. Like, I would say at least Aiden and Trist, what we've seen from them, they probably wouldn't be. But and obviously we know this doesn't happen because Aor gets destroyed. But um, I'm just curious about like how, and I think we talked about this earlier. Like how exactly did that start, and could this be any potential connective tissue between the Lawbearer? Like
Mm,
you know, depending on what her true motives are. But
yeah,
anyway,
no,
that's all I
that's
got.
good. I did look, by the way, the shadow dragons were native to the Shadowfell,
Mm,
which is that Lulth's domain?
I think it. I don't know actually.
No, okay, I don't remember. Anywho, and are known as true evil creatures,
The
which
dragon.
tracks, yes, which tracks because we know also not just Fae, but also demons and devils and fiends, excuse me, have joined the ranks of the Magisters to bet on the mortals, as Brennan put it. So
Mm,
we're not going to be having just like level 20 wizard battles. We're going to
yeah,
have some pretty crazy creatures involved too. So,
I'm excited for it, and I wanted to double check here, but yeah, it's the Raven Queen. It's her
oh,
realm,
okay. That was the only other thing I was wondering was the Raven Queen.
which
So,
again makes me wonder. Could I mean it would
mhm.
seem too easy if they just walk up to the dragon and Laura's like shoo, and that works, but it
Yeah,
definitely feels like there could be something there to help them. Um,
yeah.
I mean,
Um,
with how long battles are, like if we have a big battle against a dragon and then, you know, and maybe that's the final battle, but I imagine there's probably like some inter-party conflict a little bit maybe, and then,
mhm.
mages. So like battle could take up like 4 hours of this final episode.
Yeah, I
But
feel like episode 4 of Calamity was 6+ hours and there was one battle in it.
yeah.
so yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Um Going to Cassida though. You said you had some things top of mind.
Oh, that was already what I talked about, just about how the Society of Primes like
Oh,
came
yeah.
together and yeah, that's pretty much it. Just what how that came to be.
I feel bad for her because I was
Yeah.
thinking about what would be compelling enough to Bell's Hells, and this feels like it's potentially it. That the prime deities are good, the betrayer gods are evil. They have an opportunity where Aor does not have to be destroyed, where they can end the war. We know the calamity is hundreds of years after it lasts for another hundreds of years,
Mm-hmm.
endless death and destruction. The deities have a chance to end it, kill the betrayer gods for good, and whatever. But presumably don't make that choice. Aor's destroyed. Maybe Cassida and her son are even tragic victims of the blowout of all of this, as well as a number of whoever else is part of the Society of Primes. Um, this feels like a compelling enough thing for Lunas to be like, look, they're going to serve their own interests no matter what. Now, would that be actually compelling enough? I don't know, but this feels like potentially the thing.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, that's certainly a really good. He's like, hey, they're not on your team. They're looking out for number one always. So that's what we need to do. I could totally see that. Um, I wonder. I still think there's. I feel like there's something
Another
here
shoe to drop.
besides. Sorry.
Yeah, another shoe to drop,
Yeah,
like
like
another thing.
yeah, maybe like another event that paints them in a bad light, but like even beyond that, I feel like there's something else. Like Ludinus came here for something, to learn something, and I think he's just using the opportunity to show Bell's Hells, hey, like while you're here, by the way, look, like this is why I'm doing this. But that's not why Ludinus came to Aor to get the Thalamus. Like he came for his own reasons for something,
Yeah,
right?
good point.
So
Yeah.
what was that? And he compared it to Prodathos in terms of importance, I think. So I know we talked, I think, in a little bit in episode 1, maybe it's the gods' true names, or maybe there's something else, like you mentioned, like another shoe to drop that will be like really big in some way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean,
Um,
as of right now, the point you brought up about the potential plan to kill betrayers, I think, is a really great point. But besides that, there hasn't been too much compelling things yet that would like, oh, this is going to turn everybody against the gods. But I do expect we could have that in episode 3.
Yeah, I mean, I could see this expanding into like a more compelling point, but it definitely feels like it would be surprising for nothing else to develop and Luz to be like, see? And Felsel's being like, we're still, dude, we totally are still gonna kill you. Like, wait, what? Like, did we see the same thing? You know, doesn't feel like it's yet fully simmered, but we're on our way.
Yeah. Which, so, and this is more of a narrative thing I'm speaking to right now. I don't really know if I have the pieces to make it make sense. But what if it was like there seemed to be an out for everyone? Like whatever events happen, like there seems to be a way out where AR could be chill, but then the emissary like presses the big red button and like they still destroy everything. Like, so maybe there's like some kind of betrayal, at least in the eyes of humanity, about what goes on. Basically the same premise you're talking about is like, oh, we could have done this. We could have destroyed the betrayers. Like maybe there's another like layer to that of like, oh, this was the perfect plan.
Emissary gives me big Iron Giant vibes, by the way, which is one of my wife's favorite movies. Like almost every scene, I'm like, yep, Iron Giant. So
I totally see that.
If we don't get Nashir to say you are who you choose to be, and then like opt out of their programming in some way, I'll riot. So
that would be amazing.
But
or go ahead.
I was just gonna say I love the dialogue with the Planetar Barathrin. Like that was such an incredible, just weighty conversation that I really loved and makes sense. You know, like we were crafted for war, and then we were told to stop just to pick up our arms again one day.
Yeah.
So
very true, and I think it adds some nice depth to Aiden and all the gods really, but you know, thus far we're like Aiden's been this paragon of justice, like the Dawn Father. He's just trying to help everybody, but he's been waging a war for hundreds of years where Celestials and other people in his army are dying. So you know, he's not just all good. You know, there's definitely shades of gray there. So yeah, I loved that too.
And we've definitely seen that colorization a little bit in like CR3 a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not all just, you know,
Sunshine and
rainbows. I was like Critical Role Jesus over here.
Yeah. Oh, so. I'm so glad you said that. Because there was this episode, everyone kind of showed their true self and whatever. And there was a moment where Aiden prays to the Dawn Father.
Right.
Himself. I know a lot of people were like confused about that, and I certainly don't have the answer, but my interpretation, and I think we talked about this in the Discord, so I think we agree, is that like his take on that is kind of like a comparison to God and Jesus. Like, they're different, but they're the same. So I think like that's my interpretation of what was happening there. But
yeah, and just without getting like really in the weeds, it's just like it's a basic Christian tenet that God and Jesus are both they're one and the same, but also separate. And so I think that's why there's been jokes around, you know, what if Jesus was in D&D, you know? For me, it's a little too on the nose in the sense of like I almost wonder if there's another element to it that that hasn't apparated yet. I say on the nose in the sense of it's just very much like a pick up and play concept, which honestly is how a lot of us play D&D anyway. Like, I'm going to be the moody, edgy character. So like, I don't fault Nick for it, and I don't have a problem with it. But I am curious, is there, I don't think this is the case, but there were a couple of comments in the Discord about like, because Brendan even used a line, I think he said the Dawn Fathers, like plural or something, of like, how has the Dawn Father maybe evolved over time, and is like they're almost like this again, this is a reach, so I'm not saying this is the case, but the comment made was like, you know, how just like how a sun like dies out and a black hole is formed, and like new stars are born and things like that? Is there some kind of like, not reincarnation, but like endlessness and expansiveness of the Dawnfather that we haven't yet seen? Again, I don't think it's that, but I do wonder if Nick has like a little tiny twist or lore detail that we haven't fully seen yet. And maybe not. Maybe it is just like a pickup of the Christian ideology. But he's a great player regardless. But I'm interested to see where that's going.
Yeah, and I think that like Dawnfather has, I mean, not that the gods in Critical Role are not meant to be one-to-one to like real life
Right.
religions. But that being said, Dawnfather is obviously the parallel to like the Christian God.
Right. Yeah.
So it could have even been that like, I guess I don't know what I'm saying, but I think if Nick did do that, like there was intentionality and method behind it, as opposed to like, oh, I have to play a god, like let me be Jesus. Like, I think there was, I think there was more thought into it than that. Sure. If that is what's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really cool idea about. I love like the star to black hole kind of like rebirth cycle, because again, the Dawnfather head is literally a star. So that would make sense too.
But.
And then a really random possibility that I don't think anyone really thinks is that Aiden's not the Dawnfather. It is like, is someone else.
That's actually where I first went to. And I was in the Discord like, okay, what?
Yeah.
But then like the Holy Trinity stuff, like the comments around that, I was like, okay, that does make a lot more sense. But
the only reason I don't think that is because like the binary on his character sheet says Dawn. So like they would be going like really deep with this subterfuge if it wasn't him. So I'm glad you brought that comment up that spurred that, because I did want to talk about that. I forgot where I was going to go next. Reading through my notes really quick. If you've got anything, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, presumably their next stop will be they've dispelled the guys over the city. So I think the Stormlord and whoever else, like they're gonna start hitting Aor, I would assume.
Yeah.
And that'll maybe create like the chaos and coverage for them to descend deep into the heart of Aor to this place that a Castriel is looking to meet with the Magisters.
Right.
And presumably where they're gonna, which like with the Taro, I'm like, how did they get him down into the heart of Aor, like a big dragon? Like, is there like a service elevator somewhere? Or
yeah, yeah, I think there's ways. Dragons can also take mortal form.
True.
I don't know if a Taro can do that or not.
That's an important detail, I guess. Yeah. They're like, so you got a human form, right? He's like, no.
It's like, oh, this is awkward.
Yeah. That's a good point, though.
What were we saying right before that?
I
feel like I was just sparked something in me.
I was just guessing where they're going to go next. I'm assuming like deep into this.
Oh yeah,
the heart of the city.
I'm curious how much power the gods have now that the Obtenebrator was broken. Like, is it just storms and stuff, or could they obviously still can't come there because of the Latimus precepts, but they can see it. So like, I wonder, like, clearly the Stormlord can't just rip apart Aor, but he can make weather. Okay.
And confirmation that the party's level 20 too.
Yeah.
By the way.
20.
So 20 also. Yeah. They are 22. It's like, wait.
What do you mean?
I have, by the way, seen some really cool homebrew content on like, I'd call it like hero classing, but it's not that. But like, what do you do for your characters that are post level 20? We didn't get that in this, but it's kind of nice for campaigns that continue on. Like, what do they keep progressing towards?
Yeah.
Level 20 is, for our listeners, maybe don't play D&D. I mean, it's literally it's the peak of like the leveling curve. It's like the peak of progression content in terms of like your pathway. So we're also going to see some level 20 combat, which like, bro, after like level 12, I get overwhelmed. A player's like, they're like, I'm going to cast this. And I'm like, Yes, let me look that up to make sure I know what's happening here. I've never even heard of this spell, so
totally. And
yeah.
there's how many of them total? Like 10
6 of them.
plus the betrayers, though.
Oh, right, yeah,
Which
that's
maybe
right.
they're not all gonna be there, but that's why I could also see some kind of inner party conflict happening to like,
Yeah,
because 10 level 20 gods is like, how strong is this dragon? You know?
right. I like to keep my party at level 3, so I only
Yeah,
have to worry about like Eldritch Blast,
that's
you
right.
know? So, like, I know how to deal with that.
That's the big brain
But
DM move. You never let them level.
yeah. It's
Um,
been 2 years. Let
please,
us let us level up. Nope.
not today.
Yeah.
Um,
Makes me think of our campaign where like you'd have us level and like literally the next session. And did
are you
we?
forgetting something?
Yeah, did we level up? So
Like that's just like a rite of passage as a player. You gotta
yeah,
ask.
it's nice. One of my campaigns they never ask, so it's always nice when they do level up.
Hmm.
It's nice like when you give it rather than you've
Yeah,
been
that's
begged
true.
for it.
That's true.
So anyway, what were you saying though?
Um, I was gonna shift a little bit back to Hallis.
Hmm.
Which there's some confusion in the Discord at first because we thought it was Halas, which
Oh
I've told you about Halas before. He's like
yeah,
the super powerful wizard.
magic fun ball.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
yeah.
Hallis, I don't think it's Halas, but there was a theory. We talked a little bit about it in episode 1. Like, will we see Ludinus somewhere in here? Like, could Hallis be Ludinus?
Hmm.
I'm not like super on board with that, but I do think it's possible. Like, I think it would be interesting if we did get a little more insight into why Ludinus hates the gods so much. We know he was alive back then, but we don't know if he was there. I also saw, could Hallis be the kid that Frida was protecting, which would also make sense. And there was like a weird, when Amira tried to like see his lifespan the way she can do, wasn't there like a
Hmm.
weird answer about it?
I don't
I'm
remember.
not looking at it. I don't remember, but I feel like Brennan didn't give like 30 years. Like there was some
Yeah.
like strangeness to the answer.
I don't even remember. I don't remember the answer because that was in the vision, right? Like the vision of the like
Yes.
looking at the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know.
Which that might have been
Yeah,
why. Like maybe because she
yeah.
wasn't literally with him in person. Like that might have been
Right.
why the answer was weird. But yeah, super interesting. I mean, Halas could be done. Like, and that character could have served its purpose as this intro to her.
He's dead.
What's her name? But I think it would be interesting. And then I also think this is something that's kind of served its purpose and is not relevant anymore. But this wasting, the sickness that he had,
Yeah.
what is that? Like, what is that even these super powerful mages with all these spells couldn't deal with? And then presumably, did what Trist do heal him?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I thought
Well,
so
I think
too. And then that made it what made me think it wasn't really relevant anymore because it's dealt with. But I did think it was interesting, and it reminded
yeah,
me. Not that it's the same thing. It's not the same thing, but it reminded me of Evandrin, how
yeah,
like he was sick and they couldn't do anything about it.
yeah,
But
yeah. And whereas with Evandrin, maybe he was beyond any divine magic anyway. But it's going back to the line from the lieutenant or the captain when they were getting on the ship to go up to Aor, and like pretty much like, hey, we've cut off all deity connections whatsoever. I think it's a nice crack in the foundation of the whole point of the Age of Arcanum was like we don't need the gods. We've ascended to like our own level of like power and authority, whatever. And yet here's a disease that even the height of Aeorian technology can't cure.
yeah,
And yet here's a god who just, lay a level 1 spell, by the way, or like you have it at level 1,
yeah.
lay on hands, boom, you're healed.
Yeah,
So
that's a really great point. I didn't even think about that, but I love that.
it's like for all their ego, they still needed the gods despite maybe what they thought.
Yeah, and great tee up for me to launch into this next part of Just like the humans need the gods, I think the gods do need the humans as well, which is something we've talked about a lot, especially back in Calamity and just during C3 during the god stuff. But like, this kind of balance, and I think even Xerxes was talking about how like we created you, you didn't create us type of thing, which doesn't seem to be true based on what we learned now with the backstory of the gods and the prologue to Downfall.
Right.
And they clearly had power even then because, they kind of form their domains and stuff as they're escaping. But I do think they glean power from mortals. So I think this is like
Yes.
a symbiotic relationship now, even
Yes.
even if it always wasn't. Because literally they describe how they feel it when someone is praying to them and they get power. So I'm very curious about that relationship.
It feels like the game Black and White. If you ever played that game, great.
I didn't, but I know what you're talking about.
Well, like, you're building this town or whatever, and as you do a good job, you get like more. I don't know what the currency is called, but it's basically faith, which is like the power to do more things. I totally agree with you. I think that there is like this symbiotic, and maybe I think the implication Xerxes was making was that it's maybe even become parasitic. Even like you need us more than we need you.
Yeah.
To a certain deity, but yeah, it's a great point.
Sorry, you froze for a second, but I think I caught most of that.
That's
why
I'm quitting. That's why I'm quitting the show.
And I'm out.
And I'm out.
But yeah, totally with you. Parasitic. I love that. Yeah, I'm interested. I wonder if in this third episode we will get, like, is it gonna be all gas, no brakes with what's happening in Aor, or could we get some more like overall lore? Like, think there's any chance we get another like flashback to the gods in the early days or anything like that?
Maybe as like an epilogue, possibly.
That'd be cool.
But I don't think so. I think it's gonna be all gas. I think we'll get like subtle nods, but there's just too much ground to cover.
Yeah.
So,
and on that same note, I think there's too much ground to cover, and there almost certainly is. Well, there definitely is, actually. But I would love to see, or at least learn about how the decision comes to be made to where the gods put themselves behind the divine gate after the calamity.
right.
Because it's interesting that they all like agree to that. Maybe they don't. Like, maybe the primes are able to force the betrayer's hand somehow, but curious how that happened, because that is actually, like, regardless of what happens with Aor, that ultimately seems to be a good outcome for humanity, the fact that the gods do that. So it seems to be that the primes must win in some way, or at least convince the betrayers somehow.
Yeah, but we also know that the divine gate isn't until the end of the calamity, which is still several hundred years down the road. Notably, the calamity ending with still the betrayer god's not dead. So it almost kind of gives more of a nod to what Gorathrin the Planetar was saying, of like this squabble, kind of like it's unending. It's going to continue. And there is no like real resolution. Like, we're kind of the victim of it. But I was looking to see if I could find the runtime on this next episode, but they haven't posted it, unfortunately. But
yeah, I don't think they'll post it till tomorrow sometime.
Yeah. So anyway,
it's got to be long though. What if it's like 2.5 hours?
I hope it is long.
TPK.
So. All right. Anything else, my friend? A lot of good chatter.
Yeah, I think that's the majority of what I wanted to touch on. But like we mentioned at the start of this episode, these are so densely packed. So be sure to let us know in the comments any other things you guys want to talk about, or in the Discord. Again, we have a whole specific channel just for Downfall, so check it out.
All right. Well, we have the live watch party tomorrow night for the episode. We have our Friday stream at our normal time, 1 p.m. Central Time on Friday. Other than that, and then we'll have Worlds Beyond recording over the next 3, 4, 5 days before the next episode drops. I think that does it.
I think that's it. Well, y'all, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Bye.